The perfect Western to watch after Tombstone came out just 6 months after the Kurt Russell and Val Kilmer movie Tombstone is one of the greatest Westerns of its era, recounting the infamous story of Wyatt Earp and his bloody vendetta against the cowboys of the Wild West. As one of the most legendary figures in American history, Earp's story has been retold time and time again in increasingly unique ways, but Tombstone is widely considered to be the definitive interpretation of these events. However, there are many westerns like Tombstone that center on Wyatt Earp's adventures. Kevin Costner's 1994 film Wyatt Earp is a perfect example. The film was under a lot of pressure to live up to the huge success of Tombstone, but ultimately failed to accrue the same amount of popularity. The movie focuses on an earlier period of Earp's life, and this wasn't considered quite as interesting to general moviegoers. Wyatt Earp was in fierce competition with Tombstone for a long time, but in reality, there's plenty of space for both projects to coexist. Kevin Costner's Wyatt Earp came out just 6 months after Tombstone. Coincidentally, Costner's Wyatt Earp was preceded by Kurt Russell's Tombstone by only 6 months. The films were released in 1993 and 1994, but these projects focus on strikingly different periods of Earl's life. Tombstone is widely considered the better of the two projects because of its more sprawling narrative and ensemble cast, with the film focusing on the later years of Earp's life as he enacted his revenge against the cowboys and cleaned the streets of the Wild West. Costner's Wyatt Earp is a much more standard biographical film that focuses on the infamous lawman's upbringing, exploring how he came to be the semi-mythological figure that he's considered today. The movie depicts Earp's attempts to join the Union Army during the American Civil War, despite being turned away due to his young age. These two concepts started a light-hearted battle between Kurt Russell and Kevin Costner's movies when they tell very different kinds of stories. Why Wyatt Earp was not as successful as Tombstone ultimately. The reason for Tombstone's success and Wyatt Earp's respective failure is the former's more engaging and action-packed narrative. Russell's film has a much larger time span, and his lead performance is infinitely charming as he depicts some of the most renowned moments of the lawman's life. His rivalry with Johnny Ringo and the Cowboys gives the narrative a clear direction and purpose, while Val Kilmer's supporting performance as Doc Holliday adds an extra layer of intrigue to the story. Contrastingly, Costner's Wyatt Earp is a much drier and by-the-book retelling of Earp's life that doesn't go into detail about the parts of his story that audiences are typically interested in. It doesn't have the stylish shootouts, the intense rivalries, or the bloody acts of vengeance that make Tombstone such an engaging watch, and that's exactly what audiences want from these kinds of revived westerns. Tombstone was the more successful film simply because it understood what viewers desired from this infamous story, whereas Wyatt Earp tried to make the legend more grounded and slow-paced objectively. It's hard to say which of the two Earp movies is better, but Tombstone is certainly more entertaining. Not only does it detail the most interesting moments in the lawman's life, but its ensemble cast is a huge asset that makes every single scene stand out among the crowd. Even the scenes that have nothing to do with Wyatt Earp are captivating, offering several interweaving subplots that ultimately come together for an unforgettable final duel between Doc Holliday and Johnny Ringo. Dennis Quaid's interpretation of Doc Holliday certainly has some fun moments, but he's nowhere near as captivating and charming as Kilmer in this role. Conversely, Wyatt Earp struggles to find its footing whenever Costner's protagonist isn't on the screen. Dennis Quaid's interpretation of Doc Holliday certainly has some fun moments, but he's nowhere near as captivating and charming as Kilmer in this role. The narrative itself is slower and more direct, which may appeal to more historically minded audiences, but it lacks the tension and excitement that made Tombstone so widely popular. There's certainly space for both projects, but Wyatt Earp is made for a very specific kind of audience, whereas Tombstone is the kind of Western that even non-Western fans can enjoy.